Welcome back to another Boxscore Geeks episode. We have the same draft crew back together. Myself, Dre, aka Nerd Numbers, Arturo Galletti, the draft master. Although we won't be talking much about the draft this podcast, we spent 3 hours doing that last week. We'll make sure to give you a link in case you missed us live. I don't know why you'd want to rewatch 3 hours of live draft coverage, but it's out there if you would like to. And of course, the voice of God himself, our producer, Brian. And I'll let you say hey so people recognize your voice when you pop on, if you pop on, Brian.
Oh, sure. I'll just say one brief thing. Got to get my voice out there. Absolutely.
I thought you were actually going to start freestyle rapping, which would have been amazing. This show is brought to you by Hispanic Superheroes, a tunnel we delved into in the pre-show. Basically, can you think of mainstream Hispanic superheroes? Arturo, his wife, and myself were going back and forth throughout the last 30 minutes. This isn't recorded live, so you didn't notice the delay, but that almost tanked this night's show. But tonight we're going to be talking NBA free agency. So much is going on. I have a lot of opinions, Archer, on this first one, but I'm actually going to ask you because Brian and I talked a lot about this pre-show. So, Arturo, the Heat basically are looking to get the band back together. Bron's saying he wants a full contract, max contract, but he's willing to basically do short-term, 1 or 2 years. Dwayne Wade's looking to basically take 4 years at 11 million a year, and Bosch is looking somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 years, 80 million total. It should be understood both of these guys had 2 years remaining at about 20 million a year. So these are substantial pay cuts. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one thing people need to kind of understand, which is out there, which is the new CBA is out there and the new TV contract is out there, and the reason you're going to see some interesting and weird contracts is once the new CBA kicks in, and I believe it kicks in at the new TV deal is going to be after not this season, after next. And if I'm wrong, people are going to shoot me. But what's happening is people are kind of signing these deals with the understanding that they want to be free agents once the new deal comes in, because two things are going to go on. One, the money's going to go up substantially, so it might actually go up to something like cap's at $62 million. Cap might go up to something like 80 or more. And the other thing is the players. There's already a memo been leaked that says to the players, save your money for the next 18 months because we're walking. And the players are going to have all the leverage, and they think they're going to get a higher percentage of the money, and that's going to get up. So,
I'll give you that for LeBron, especially because if LeBron is on a max, the max contracts are a percentage of the salary cap. So even if it goes up, he maintains that. But Bosch and Wade are looking to get themselves in long-term deals for less money, which I don't understand.
But it doesn't work that way. I mean, if I sign a deal for $20 million, right, under the current CBA, and I sign it for 5 years, like if the CBA gets renegotiated so that the max deal is $30 million, I'm not getting a raise unless the players walk and reset. I'd still be getting $20 million per year. So this is why everybody's like willing to opt out.
Well, no. Again, for LeBron, if he gets the max, the way the max works, according to Larry Kuhn's CBAs, if you sign a max contract, that is a percentage of the salary cap. They give you 30 to 35%. But if you're like Wade and Bosch and sign for these 11 million a year, it's going to stay stuck at that unless they're doing it a percentage of the salary.
The max contract money might actually change too as well. I mean, I think the point is people are like, you'll see all these short-term contracts being signed because people kind of want to be free agents, unless it's older players where like they want to stretch. I think what's really interesting is that Chris Buzar was actually talking about this today. Where like they apparently this is not as done of a deal as we think. I mean, I think there's still some room for wiggle. We really still don't know if LeBron's going to re-sign with Miami. I think LeBron's going to try to get the max money. I still think LeBron's going to take some meetings. I think ultimately, I do think it's more likely that it winds up in Miami, but still kind of up in the air. I feel we still don't know exactly what's going to happen there, and it's really interesting. I mean, I think Wade, he's going to get like a loyalty bonus for staying in Miami. I think Bosch is the more valuable of the other two. I think LeBron's going to get the max deal if he wants it. I think Bosch could get some real money if he went out to market, just because he's a big man, he's effective, and he does things.
I would say for the Heat, they would actually want. I have not been impressed with Bosch in Miami. I don't know if it's just the plan that they decided to play him under, but if you look at him in when he was up north in Toronto and look at him in Miami, he is not the same player. He's not as good. He shoots very well, but as we kind of point out for bigs, they're expected to do other stuff, and he really doesn't do any of that.
Well, but his
And he's
game
expensive and he's older.
when you get him into kind of his game works with as a complementary piece to LeBron's. I think they're asking you to do things that kind of.
I'm going to contradict you there and say almost anybody's game is complementary to do. If you're saying next to LeBron, his game is anybody's game is complementary next to LeBron's.
I think Bosch is a bit of a victim of what they ask him to do on this team. I think it's kind of similar to somebody we'll talk about in a little bit, which is Pau Gasol, which is he was a little bit of a victim of playing that D'Antoni system where they're asking him to do things that don't kind of make sense for him. I think, again, of the two, the one that's leaving the most money or has a shot at leaving the most money on the table is Bosch because he's a big man. He'd get the money. People would pay him. I think Wade at this point is kind of a devalued asset. And honestly, I think if I'm the Heat, I want to get LeBron. I want to get Bosch and Wade at a significant discount, but I wouldn't be sad if I lost. This is kind of like New York. I really wouldn't be sad if Melo leaves. And the same thing with Miami. It's like even if I sign Wade and Bosch to discount and I can get a trade for better value for them, I want to do it. I mean, I don't think that Wade is the guy you want to keep around if you want to be winning titles for the next 5 years. I just don't think that's the case. I don't want to tie up.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, even to what you're saying about the new CBA, I'm just baffled. So what I'd stress is for Miami, the team, they don't really have better options, right? It's really hard to rebuild an entire team via free agency, and we'll talk about the Spurs a little more later.
No, I mean,
I know they're on the
Miami could say screw it, we're going to sign LeBron to the maximum. They make an offer sheet to Lowry, they make an offer sheet to Lance, they make an offer sheet to Powell, and they're still under the cap. And once they get those four guys in,
why would they sign
everybody
Powell?
else?
Powell, no, Powell and Bosch are two players I don't want on my teams.
Well, if you can get him a discount, I think again you're discounting the fact that like that D'Antoni system was asking him to do things that like just were not. I mean, they're asking him to play away from the basket, and that's not his game. I mean, they think
that's true, but he's also older. I mean, that's the problem is he's older and he'll command a bigger deal. But all I'm saying from Miami's perspective.
They could make an offer to like five. They could get anybody they really wanted to because they got the cap room once they get LeBron. They don't have to, like they're the only reason there is a human element in the fact that they're getting Wade and Bosch. This is not a basketball element. There's a loyalty element. There's a whole thing. It's like Wade and Bosch are not the right way to go. Bosch maybe if you get him a discount, but Wade isn't. It's the only reason they're doing this is because there's like it's not because they're the best basketball option. It's because it's a PR move more than anything else.
It could actually be the KG move. So from my perspective, right, the wise move is you just keep LeBron, you keep that cap space, you sign some smart players. Like you said, Kyle Lowry is a good one. The issue, right, is if you let Wade go, LeBron may ditch you because you're not re-signing his friend. Don't forget, like when he signed with the Heat, he brought Ilgauskas along with him. For what people say about LeBron James, he does seem to show some loyalty to friends.
I mean, agreed. I think, again, I think the situation is fluid. I think there's like an 80% chance that they all come back. And I think the key piece is Braun. I mean, if Braun signs, once LeBron signs the contract, then everything else will fall into place. But he still hasn't signed the contract. I mean, he could have. He just hasn't yet. I mean, it's really interesting to me that there's still kind of like stories coming out of like ESPN saying, no, this is not a done deal, right? So why is Chris Broussard has sources telling him that this is not a done deal, right? So
what I will say about just my general opinion is LeBron James, as long as he gets the max, is fine. I've said this about LeBron. He has nothing left to prove. The reality is people don't get that Michael Jordan's second three-peat had much more to do with his teammates than they want to give him credit for. Getting Dennis Rodman was a coup. Tony Kukoc coming over from Europe was huge. Steve Kerr was amazing. Obviously, Pippen sticking around. All of these things are why he got a second three-peat. People want to believe that he was the MVP and the major driving force. For the first three-peat, yes, Jordan was definitely Batman. People don't realize he wasn't as much Batman on that second three-peat. He was also helped a little bit by the rules. For instance, the NBA shortened the three-point line. That's the only time in Jordan's career he was hugely effective from there. So, LeBron James, it's unrealistic for him to want to match Jordan's second half of his career because that would just require a super team. So he can
Yeah,
just do whatever he wants, in my opinion.
yeah. I think the more interesting thing, and you mentioned Jordan. So like I've done some research that shows that last Jordan contract with the Bulls was one of the monetarily in terms of value delivered. Was a really terrible contract. It's probably, in my numbers, it was probably one of the worst contracts signed. And again, this is not because he wasn't a good player before. It's like he was more getting the money because of who he was, not who he was at the point. Until, obviously until Kobe Bryant signed his extension. But again, I think that, now you have longer primes and now you have a long career. So I do think that people are talking about LeBron being in his decline, but even if he is on a slight decline, he's still worth way more than the max, right?
But all I'm saying about LeBron, right, is he's got 2 rings. He's got what, 3 or 4 MVPs. He's
Five
always on
finals.
the top. He's got 5. Yeah. So, I mean, he has nothing left to prove, in my opinion. So he can just do whatever he wants. And so if he wants a title, I say go to Houston. If he wants money, make sure he gets paid the money. If you're looking at Bosch and Wade, my main point to them is you are leaving so much money on the table. And even if you're trying to get the band back together, I think you would probably agree with this. I don't think the Heat, even if they get a top free agent, unless it's a major one, unless it's like Kevin Love, I don't think that team can compete with the top of the West unless there's significant changes. And I'm just not confident in that front office to do it.
Well, I mean, unless something, and again, I don't know what the final shape that Heat team's going to take, but I don't know that I'm necessarily. I've been picking Heat Spurs the last few years and been way right in terms of the finals. I don't know that I'm going to necessarily pick the Heat. Now, I don't know who the other option is going to be for the East, but you're going to see some slippage, and it's like you're going to get these 3 guys. I don't think Wade can't play a full season. Bosch is okay, as you're saying, in that system.
They might lose Birdman, who was their second best player behind Braun last year. No, I mean, I think they might be able to make the finals again because the East sucks that much. I'm just saying, I don't think that the loyalty that Bosch and Wade are showing will be worth the basically $20 million they're leaving on the table in the long run.
True. Unless there's like an offshore account they're getting money from. But yeah, no, I don't think you're arguing that they should just take the money, and I think that's there's an argument to be made for that. Sure.
We both like listening. I haven't done as much since I've not had as long of a commute, but listening to sports talk radio. And one of the things that former players will say is they wish after their career is over they would have thought a little bit more about getting paid during their career than when their career was done. Because during your career you want loyalty, you want team, you want rings, you want all these things, and when your career is done and you actually have to pay the medical bills and keep paying for a lifestyle, the money's not going to roll in. That actually segues us to our next point. Jason Kidd, I'm actually fully behind his mutiny to get to the Bucks. I'm curious if you agree.
You're not going to get disagreement. The only people who are unhappy are like coaches. And here's the thing. And they're like, oh, it's like, look, the guys who are hiring him are not going to be upset that he did what he did. Like he moved from an organization, from a boss who's a little bit crazy and Billy King, he's not that great, to an organization where he has a lot more control and he has an in with the ownership. And you were making that point, which is you like he has better prospects at being with the Bucks and making them better than staying with the Nets and kind of sustaining with the kind of payroll kind of that they've taken on.
Well, do you see that trade? He asked the Nets, and I guess this was one of the deal breakers. For those of you listening out there who may not have heard it, one of the things he asked for is he said, let's trade with the Bucks of all teams for it's Ilyasova and Larry Sanders. Larry Sanders did not have a good season last season, but he was out most of the season. At Sloan a few years ago, he was reported to be one of the top defenders by some of the new metrics. Even using old wins produced a few years ago, he was. Oh, sorry, my dogs are Jason Kidd fans and are very upset. He was slighted. I'll actually bring my dog on the air. So very upset he was slighted on New Jersey, or Brooklyn rather. Sorry. So basically, I'll put him down. Basically, he asked for Larry Sanders, who was a star big 2 years back, and Ersan Ilyasova, who is a good wing player, in exchange for Brook Lopez, who is just He's been a Derrick Rose-like disappointment. And I don't know how good he's played, but Tiljatovic, I think, is the guy.
Yeah.
And that's a great trade.
Here's the interesting thing. It's like the Nets actually outperformed our projection for them this year. And the way that actually happened was, and even though they lost one of their more productive players, or like who've been decent in, or at least an average player in Lopez, the reason it happened was because kind of Kid went out and figured out who to play, and it wasn't the lineups that people. He didn't go by money; he went by like production. So in one season of data, you have excitement. You have enough data to say he might be a decent coach, right? So and then we see like he does seem to have a handle on who's actually productive, and I would say that I probably trust him more to make player personnel decisions than Billy King. So I mean, like if you're working for Billy King, he got the opportunity. He got more money in Milwaukee. It's a better opportunity. He's not working for crazy bosses. I mean, I wouldn't, if I were Jason Kidd and I'm standing in a crowd and it's not raining and some guy has an umbrella, I might walk the other way. But I think he did the right thing. I mean, you never want to hear the Russians are done with Jason Kidd in any context. But hey, it's I think he did the right thing.
And the last point I'll make is, if you look at coaches, Dave's pointed this out, and I think your research has shown a different view. Basically, Dave's research has shown a coach is not going to significantly improve the permanent production of the players added to his team. What the coach can do is pick the right players to play, and that's hugely important. But as Jason Kidd was showing, it looks like he wasn't getting that opportunity in New Jersey or Brooklyn. Sorry, I keep calling. There'll always be the New Jersey Nets to me. But the problem being with Kidd is, if you're a coach on a team where you don't have a lot of control. Say again?
The New York Nets.
New York Nets? Yeah, okay, that works. If you're a coach on a team where you don't have a lot of control, and that team is probably going to end up losing, you're just waiting to get fired. And if, as we were talking about with, players above not having real time, their contracts are almost up. Their money-making potential is going to dry up. If you're a player that's gotten into a coaching gig, you want that coaching gig to go as long as possible. And so Kidd doesn't want to just be a sacrificial lamb. He actually wants to get the opportunity to, stick it out. So he did the right move here. I can't fault him at all. That's all I got going for him. Players should take lessons from Jason Kidd and Carmelo Anthony. Maximize your money. Don't try and be loyal, I'll put that in quotes, with organizations that will throw you out the second you're, over the hill. Now, I don't have a great segue into our last segment, Arturo, but Jason Kidd was a guard. One of the few guards that was probably worth his, at one point he was making $20 million a year.
Okay.
Today was an absurd day in NBA free agency, and to start out NBA free agency, I want to read you some contracts. The Boston Celtics ink Avery Bradley to a 4-year, $32 million deal. The Detroit Pistons ink Jody Meeks to a 3-year, $19 million deal. The Golden State Warriors ink Sean Livingston to a 3-year, $16 million deal. And the Orlando Magic ink Ben Gordon to a 2-year, $9 million deal. I just cannot believe.
And the Spurs gave Patty Mills 3 years.
You are burying the you are worse than M. Night Shyamalan at projecting scary twists. Patty Mills is going to be my twist at the end of this.
Oh, okay.
We've ruined the twist. So the Spurs do things right. Even though Patty Mills is an amazing guard, they pay him under $5 million a year. And I actually made a tweet about this. I said, if you are paying more than $5 million a year for a guard that is not a star, you are getting ripped off. I just cannot believe that despite all the new analytics, despite the proposed Moneyball revolution, how many teams are in love with guards for this much money?
Which guards did you pay more than $5 million?
Let's see. Actually, I can cheat and pull up the site. Obviously, James Harden. And it also, I was going to question you about this.
I'd say Harden, Paul, Dragic, Lowry.
Dragic.
Let's see. I've got 4. Russ.
Now the question
maybe.
First, it's one of the players on.
Russ, yeah, I pay Russ.
You are so wrong about Russ. One of these days he's going to be put at shooting guard.
What's his wins per 48?
What do you mean? He's 1.5, 0.15, 0.16, and that's this year, and he didn't even play a full season.
Yeah, I'd pay him. Let's see, who else? List is short because
Steph Curry,
Steph
Chris
Curry. Yeah,
Paul,
definitely.
James Harden, Kyle Lowry, Goran Dragic. Now here's the question:
Oh, Klay
Is Lance
Thompson. Gotta pay. I
Stevenson
gotta pay. I gotta play Klay Thompson.
is a
If
you're
I can't
such a
trade
freaking troll.
if they can't trade Kevin Love for him, you gotta play Klay Thompson. That's gonna be a really
Is
interesting
Lance
contract negotiations.
Stevenson a guard or a wing more in your opinion?
Yeah, he's more of a wing, and Lance is too crazy for me to give him that much money and to trust him with the keys to the
You're
franchise.
willing to give Russell Westbrook, who's crazy, that much money, and then you're talking about Lance. Whatever,
Yeah, but
man.
Russell's the kind of crazy in which that like he's just crazy competitive. Like he will go through a wall to win a game.
He's
And
so
I like that
competitive
guy.
that he wants to chuck the ball to lose you games. That's not my kind of competitive.
Yeah, but he's still effective. I mean, we can go into a Russell argument. I don't want to get into a Russell argument.
We can get into. I'm just throwing this out there. Russell Westbrook is not one of the players I'd pay. But what's your opinion on teams just being in love with guards? Like, why would you waste your money in free agency like this?
Well, I was making this point. It's like who was the last like top three top three like point guard to make the finals? It's like I'm thinking it's like I'm drawing, but what is it?
Even when Rajon Rondo, the second finals he made.
Rondo's was the 16th pick. I mean, I'm talking about like a
Oh, you're
lottery
talking
pick.
in the draft? Yeah, yeah. You don't need. Well, that's the other thing. So, like, even on the list of say top guards, Kyle Korver and Jimmy.
Who was the last? Go ahead. I think
I was just going to say Kyle Korver and Jimmy Butler show up, for instance, right? You don't need to pay those guys full contract though. If you look at the market, Kyle Korver and Jimmy Butler are never going to make full dollar. Even Ty Lawson and Steph Curry.
Go ahead. Has there ever been a point guard getting the max make the finals?
Other than Magic Johnson?
Well, I don't know that. Again, at that point, we were not talking about the max. We were talking about like kind of fixed contracts and something else. So,
but he was making
he was,
the max money you could make in the NBA at the time.
Yeah. So Magic, but after that, I mean, it's like people fall in love with guards, and I understand, but like the point is everybody's got a guard. Like the Celtics had to have a really good guard in Rajon Rondo. They can't find any takers for him because everybody's got a point guard, right? Point guards and shooting guards are pretty much actually excellent shooting guards are like more rarer, but like you don't win in the NBA by having like excellent smalls. You win by having excellent bigs. Smalls are a dime a dozen, particularly now that like without the hand check rules, anybody can score.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. And that's what makes me so surprised about this is Dave Barry loves bringing up this story. This was George Mikan, who was, I think, the first commissioner of the ABA, basically just pointed out that, the NBA basketball was a big man's game. And this hasn't changed. Even when you look at players like not Melo. Whoa, did I just say Melo?
Melo.
Wow. No, not Melo. LeBron James and Magic Johnson. These are bigs that just happen to have the skills. They're just they're cheat codes, but they're bigs.
Yeah,
And,
which is like, go ahead.
That was all I got. Is that even they count as bigs to me?
Yeah. So basically, let's just kind of rank these, like from like worst to best. I think the Ben Gordon deal, terrible.
Absolutely.
I think Ben Gordon. You guys can look this up if you want. Like, go look at the worst win shares for 48 for the last 2 years. And Ben Gordon isn't just a bad player; he's the worst player in the league, and he's getting older and he's getting worse. And so somebody was arguing that he was good when he was with the Bulls, and actually in those last 3 years with the Bulls, he was decent. He was like a top 30 guard, but like that guy was like thrown into a parallel universe. That guy doesn't exist anymore. I think after that, the Avery Bradley deal is terrible for a couple reasons. One, it's like Avery Bradley is terrible. I mean, he's a great defensive defender. Don't get me wrong, but he's not. He's terrible offensively. He's not worth $32 million, particularly when you just like spent the number 6 pick in the draft for Marcus Smart. So basically, Avery Bradley's going to wind up being like your third guard, and you're paying him at $8 million a year. That's terrible. It's like it makes me want to break up with the Celtics and like start dating the Spurs, And
even if you were going to do that, why would you do it for 4 years? Like, you might make the argument, right? There's a minimum salary you have to spend, and da 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 da. They want to keep him on the roster.
This is the
4
same team.
years.
This is the same team that gave Jeff Green a 4-year $44 million deal. I don't know at this point. It's like, geez, I don't know what the hell's going on with that team. I think we said Ben Gordon's the worst. Then it's the Avery Bradley deal. The Sean Livingston deal, I would say it's a good deal, except Livingston is injury prone, so 316 is a bit
Sean
risky.
Livingston. I'm gonna have to.
Yeah,
I'm look him up really quick. I'm still
Livingston
not a fan.
Livingston's actually been really good. He's just had some catastrophic leg injuries in his career. He's the tall guard. He was good when he was with the Clippers. He got hurt catastrophically, which kind of ruined that that's the team that like won the first round that had Kaman and those guys. Like Livingston was one of the better players on that team. He was really good this year. He's a tall guard. He can post people up. He's interesting. It's going to be really embarrassing when like Golden State realizes they take a look at the lineup data and like Curry and Livingston is better than like Curry and the superstar Klay Thompson. But that's going to be really
Klay
interesting.
Thompson is
Yeah,
just
and then
that.
I like the Jody Meeks deal in the sense that like he's getting paid market value if and he's getting paid market value off of coming off like kind of not his not best seasons. He was actually pretty good when he was with Philly. I think Stan Van Gundy used him properly, and he's also getting dinged because of terrible defense on that Lakers team. So I think that he's gonna be a decent deal. Not great money, but it's a significant upper over what they had. And the Patty Mills deal is just kind of the Spurs kind of continue to pants in the league.
So by the way,
Like
this is where,
Kevin Pelton and I were agreeing on this. It's like Kevin Pelton was like, even if Patty Mills doesn't play a second next year, I still have him as a top 25 free agent. And this is like highway robbery that the Spurs has committed. Like Patty Mills for 312 is insane.
the last time I questioned a Spurs deal, it was for Manu Ginobili. I think I owe you a post on this. I questioned his deal, and he's already paid for himself, right? Like if
No,
Manu Ginobili sits on the bench all of next year, he paid for his 2 million, 2 year, I think it was 7 million or something.
Yeah, no, he's paid for it. I think the interesting thing about the Spurs is, and I was tweeting this, which is right now they have 13 players on the roster. They have about, and I'm assuming that this is assuming they have 11 players in the Hoopside salary thing, plus Patty Mills, plus Kyle Anderson, and that's about 58 million. They're going to need to cut two guys, which will put them at about 56, 55. And they'll have about 7 million to sign DL under the cap, and they still have the full MLE to offer, say, Powell, which is I think what's going to happen, Powell or somebody else. So it's
If Powell went for the mid-level exception for only a year or two, I'd be willing to pay that. We were arguing about Pau Gasol before the show and if you would put him on a team.
Yeah, and again, I think the other thing is like if you put him on the Spurs, they'll do the same thing they did with Timmy, where they put him on they'll help him kind of get into a shape that'll be better for him going forward. I don't think that's necessarily it, but they're going to have 5 million to throw at somebody. So that team is coming back like stronger than the team that just kind of laid out like a historic beatdown in the finals, and it's just insane. And then they're coming in under the cap too, which is just yeah. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, let me look this up really quick because I had faith in this guy. But Thiago Splitter, they signed, for 9 million or something. And for the other thing to consider is they're also just defending their future because they now have Thiago Splitter. I'm going to be curious to see what contract they get Kawhi back. They're getting Kawhi back, but Thiago Splitter, Patty Mills. Kawhi Leonard, I don't know what Danny Green's situation is, but they are set for. They have young players.
Yeah,
People don't get that. They think this is an old team. This is a young team.
Kawhi Leonard's contract will come in with a new TV deal, so they'll be able to offer him and pay him. They won't have a problem paying him because of the timing. So he's coming off the books when the new CBA or new TV contract comes in, so it won't be a problem. And again, I think it's like I really like Kyle Anderson. I think Kyle Anderson is going to be a heck of a player. And anytime you can get a 6'8" forward who's the best passer in college and can shoot threes and whose numbers compare favorably with Magic Johnson, yeah, at the 30. You have to draft him. So they're paying like.
Although if those of you watching live see me spurting, I still always get a kick out of comparing players to all-time great. I mean, like again,
I'm not joking with this. It's like if you start looking at look at guys, look at his points, rebounds, and assist totals, and there's only like 2-3 guys who have the numbers like that. Now the knock on Anderson, which is why he slipped, was he was 13.4% body fat. So I was like, he's a sophomore in college, so he's not in the best shape. Magic was in crazy shape, but it's like it's not like the Spurs don't have a track record of getting guys in shape. So he's going to show up, he's going to be in shape, and he's going to be fantastic. And people are going to be like, how did the Spurs get this guy? It's like, I wasn't the only stat guy who was like very upset at like the Spurs winding up with Kyle Anderson, and it's just crazy to me that like nobody else threw their body in front of it. Particularly the Thunder, who had like the perfect chance to get it like 2 spots before.
Well, yeah, I mean that we were watching that, and again, one of the comments I made after the draft, and I think we can tease. We've got some great draft pieces up. Arturo's been writing about them, so check them out at the site. Like I said, if you feel like listening to us talk for 3 hours, we basically get into a lull towards the end until the Spurs draft, and then we're just insane about it because the Spurs are just that good. The point I made about the Spurs is the Spurs aren't moneyballing the draft. I mean, if you read the book Moneyball, the trick was right. Billy Bean and his team would find these unusual prospects that no one else thought were good because they were too fat or too slow or whatever. The Spurs are picking lottery projected prospects that other teams are passing on trying to be crafty. Like that's what's the most absurd part about the Spurs to me is that they're not even being crafty in the sense of not going by conventional wisdom. They're just going, you people that at the combine got slightly afraid of the player. No, we're going to go with the fact that they were a top prospect and we're going to pick them.
I suspect they had something. They had a draft board up. It said Clint Capella. It said Cal Anderson. It said Walter Tavares. And they said, okay, we'll just stay here at 30. One of these guys is going to drop to us. And, oh, hey, Cal Anderson's available. Oh, go ahead, knock it. And that's it. And they keep doing it. And they keep – and, if you keep hitting on the draft like they do, I mean, like, look, they have 13 guys on the roster. And these are all guys that did something. I mean, Austin Day is probably the guy who was, like, the least contributor. And he still did stuff in that finals. He was still kind of, like, in the playoffs. It's like – it's pretty insane if you look at the guys that this team is like going to cut are guys who kind of these are good quality NBA players. They have guys on Toros who are good quality players. They have guys in Europe who are good quality players, and you keep doing that, which is kind of why we're talking a bit about the draft now, which is kind of why I admire what like the Sixers are doing, which is they're getting all these picks. And, I don't think they've quite figured out the drafting yet, right? I don't necessarily agree with the picks they're making, but you keep picking guys. And you keep adding all these guys and putting them into the system and testing them out. And, like, they start working. Eventually, you create kind of, like, this pool of, like, if you get a team together where, like, everybody's, start, 0.10 wins per 48, like starter level or better, right? Then, you're going to be really good for a really long time. And eventually, you're going to hit, like, you're going to win, like, when you play the lottery, you're going to win the $50 prize, and sometimes you're going to win the $5,000 prize. You just need to get one of those. And again, I think again, talking about the Sixers got Noel and Embiid, and, chances are they're going to hit on one of these guys. Right, and I was joking, and you'll see it when the Sixers comes up. And I said, look, jokingly, they lucked out and they got the Rookie of the Year last year, Michael Carter-Williams. They're likely going to have the Rookie of the Year this year in Nerlens Noel. There's a good shot they have the Rookie of the Year next year with Joel Embiid, and there's a good chance they get the Rookie of the Year after that with Dario Saric. Right, so they could. I mean, again, things have to break a certain way, but the Sixers could be looking at like 4 straight Rookie of the Years. Break right.
What I was talking about with the Spurs, and this is interesting, is in Major League Baseball, when you draft, you treat it as a farm system. You're growing the future of your team. The Spurs are one of the few NBA teams that does this, as opposed to other teams, to tie this all together, that do stupid stuff that assume in free agency they can rebuild their team by signing guards to way too big a deals. So
were you cheating? Were you cheating in reading my piece? There's a whole analogy in the one that's going up tomorrow, which is it talks about that Brazilian kid that the Raptors picked. And I said, basically, it's the equivalent of like the Raptors going, like the Yankees going up and picking a guy who's playing AA ball in Puerto Rico, because the Brazilian kid is playing in like he played like 12 minutes in like a Brazilian league, which is like the equivalent of like playing in like a 4th tier or like a Mexican like softball league and getting picked to play in the NBA.
This guy? You've used the word like 20 times now. Sorry, didn't mean to.
Well, it's kind of. I think guys who didn't watch the DraftCast, Patrick was kind of arguing that the Raptors, this was a salary cap move, and the more it kind of stuck with me a little bit. But here's the problem: the draft is not a place to save to cut cost. You will not get a player performing at a cheaper rate or a cheaper salary than a drafted player. A draft pick is the most bang for the buck you can get in the NBA. And if you're trying to cut custom draft, you're doing it wrong. You need to get those draft picks and get productive draft picks, because that's how you save your money. Getting guys on rookie contracts, having Kawhi Leonard on a rookie contract saves the Spurs a bundle of money. And like, if you don't understand that, then maybe you just don't know how to draft. I mean, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get into that argument all the time with people on Twitter where, like, for instance, still Russell Westbrook, and get back to that. I wouldn't hate him as much, and I don't hate him, but, I wouldn't be as harsh on him. But if you're making the max contract for your team, and that takes up, 30+% of your cap, that's important. And so people don't consider player contracts when evaluating how well they perform, and they need to.
Yeah, and again, I think it really does depend on the market somewhat. But yeah, I mean, you have to understand how much a guy is making to actually say so. And again, you don't like Westbrook. I think Westbrook, I mean, even and again, players in the NBA are underpaid, but in the right situation, in the right market, I think Russell Westbrook is fine. And I think it's because he's a really good player. I think we just take issue with the argument that he's a top 5 player necessarily.
I'm just saying, if I was a GM and you gave me $20 million to spend, I would never ever consider putting it on Russell Westbrook.
Yeah. So
anyway, and I would buy. All right, so we're close to time. I wanted to keep us under 45 minutes. We're at 35 minutes. Brian has informed us. We didn't get you to say anything else, Brian. We were able to keep the conversation going.
Did you hear that Derrick Rose worked out in front of Melo?
Yeah, those tweets were amazing. Just in terms of,
See, and I don't know, do people have like the short-term memory? Do people not remember that like Carmelo Anthony left the Denver Nuggets, and the Denver Nuggets proceeded to have like record wins the year after he left? And basically, they won. The Nuggets won more games every year since he left until this year, where really they were tanking, like they were outright tanking some games.
Well,
where, like, the Knicks
I mean, for the Nuggets, right? I had looked at their team. They lost. People don't like them, but they lost JaVale McGee to injury. They lost Danilo Gallinari to injury. They traded away Costa Koufis, which was silly. They lost Andre Iguodala. Thankfully, for my peace of mind, he just did not want to stay with the Nuggets, so there was nothing they could do to keep him. So, they lost 4 of their top 6 players. So I'm not that surprised that they went downhill when they lost 4 of their top 6.
What's really interesting is we were having this argument, and I've jokingly said that I've jokingly asked, what is the Knicks franchise record for wins? Just so I can keep track of it. And here's the thing. So let's say Melo goes, and there's been some talk, and Simmons was talking on their podcast with Zach Lowe. He's talking about the possibility of like Phil forcing a sign and trade war between Houston and Chicago. Let's say like Chicago wins that fight, right? And so Melo walks, and they get something like Taj and Jimmy Butler. So basically, let's say that's what happens. So the Knicks are rolling out Jose Calderon, Pablo Prigioni, Ivan Shumpert, Jimmy Butler, Taj Gibson. Let's see, who else do I have on this roster right now? We got Lamar, we've got Stat, and we've got oh God, who am I missing? No, I think that's it. It's like, and then maybe they can make an offer, and or let's say they work some magic to get Powell on that team, which is another thing that could happen. That could be really interesting, right? That Knicks team is not going to be terrible if Melo leaves. Or let's say it goes Chandler, like they get Chandler Parsons, somebody else. I mean, I think it's going to be.
Melo's played the best ball of his career with the Knicks, and while that's good, it's just the problem with Melo is he will never be worth his contract. He is a max contract guy. Some team's going to give him a max contract. He will never be worth a max contract. I'm sorry. Even watching him shoot 8 threes a game, he wasn't worth a max deal. So just unfortunately, that's my take on Melo.
The best on all worlds for Melo is Houston. I don't know that he's worth it to Houston, but I do think playing in Houston,
I will mock
playing off
Dare.
the ball,
I will be ashamed of my Morey Ball shirt if they pick up Melo. I'm not going to lie.
Well, but the thing is, like we've established that he's better playing off the ball, and in that team he would be playing off the ball, and I think that's kind of why I say that's the best of all possible worlds for Melo, is being on that Rockets team and basically just doing what he does with Team USA, which is like basically post up and like play off the ball. And I think rather than having the ball in his hands and driving, and I think that's probably the best role for him. And it's an interesting
All right, so
kind of fit.
here's I want to tie us up. So this is going to lead us into one of your shout outs. So just letting viewers know, don't watch the full 3 hours. If you want to, bless you, it'll stroke my ego. But in that 3 hour draft cast, Arturo and I made a bet. And what was it? Yeah, basically said if the Spurs, what was the bet? It was
No,
something about an AI.
your bet was basically that if the Kevin Love went to the Nuggets, you would have to buy a
Allen
AI Nuggets
Iverson,
jersey, Allen Iverson Nuggets jersey.
and wear it on every single podcast from here on out. So
Yes,
that's already
yes.
in place. I am willing to make you another one. We'll have to think of the stakes off the fly really quick here. Maybe Brian, if he's quick on the draw. If Melo goes to the Rockets and performs above a wins per 48 at small forward, because I know sometimes he's listed as a power forward, but I'll give you at small forward above 200, 0.2200, I will
200?
do something.
Really?
Star level.
How about star level? How about 2.5?
And I'm giving
pop?
you small forward. I'm giving you
How
small
about
forward.
how about 2.5 pop at small forward, which is like 0.18, I believe. 0.18.
He's hit 0.18 before. I'm going to stick hard with 0.2. He's got to be a star.
Point two, point two. So what happens if he does 0.2? You're buying a Rockets Melo jersey?
I will buy a Rockets Melo jersey, and basically I'll have to do some Clark Kent thing in the show and start in the AI jersey of Kevin Love. I'll figure it out, but yeah, I will do a Rockets Melo jersey.
These are great. These are great for me because I don't have to put any stakes up. So these are fabulous bets for me.
And yeah, and you're helping jersey sales if things happen. So I'll put that out there. All right, and that should lead you into your. We always like to end the show with shout outs. Like I said, check out the draft articles Arturo's been putting up the last week. They're great. We're going to have more free agent stuff coming up on the site because it's just been absurd. And obviously, LeBron watch is still in full effect. We always end the show with shout outs. I'll let you start, Arturo. You've got 2 this week, and one should actually have to do with bets. You seem to like prop bets with other quants.
So I've got a prop bet for 1 day of charity work with Glorious Hubert, which is EJ Fisher, who was a previous guest on the podcast. And it's on the minutes played for Kyle Anderson. We made it just after the draft. I took the over 1,700 minutes. He took the under 1,200 minutes. Anything between 1,200 and 1,700 is a push. And full details are on his website. I will provide a link to Brian to put it on there. He was kind of complaining that after we did the bet, then I've been going around with a crowbar and breaking people's legs on the Spurs. It's not quite true. But it does. I do kind of feel like with Manu being hurt and just have surgery and Patty Mills being hurt, those odds get really, really better on that one. And again, it's 1 day of charity work. And I think I was going to throw a shout out to Seth Byrne, who's been tracking, doing a Kelly sim on our World Cup model, which was doing at one point the World Cup models were 15-1 up. Over the betting markets, they took a bit of a hit on that because they both the 538 model and myself had the USA winning, and we were all sad yesterday when they missed the Wojo missed the 95th minute goal that would have given the US the.
I was going to say we should definitely give a shout out to Tim Howard, but all of Twitter was doing that for us. But the Secretary of Defense, definitely need to give him a shout out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like between Howard and Ochoa, I feel bad for the two of them. It's like and this was never mentioned, but like can't be underrated that the guy who actually like was responsible for the first goal, or in terms of moving it around and like scoring the second one, Romelu Lukaku, who I said before the game that if I was afraid of one player, it was Romelu Lukaku. Plays with Tim Howard on Everton, and he basically practices against him every day. So I'm pretty sure he is the only guy on the field who knew where Tim Howard was going to go, and that can't be underrated.
Jeez. All right. And my shout out, by the way, is to Benjamin. And I hope I sent you the link, Brian. It's on the script if you can't see it. But Benjamin Durham. And I was making a point about shot creators, which we always harp on. And he says, yeah, guys are overpaid to create these shots that smart defenses will willingly concede. So I even love this point more on shot creation, which is, not only are you not really creating a shot, go to Basketball Reference. They have pace, and teams are so close to each other in pace that basically good defenses let you create these shots. So you're not creating anything a good defense isn't going to give you anyway. Go watch the 2008 Boston Celtics against the Los Angeles Lakers for an example of Kobe Bryant creating shots. The Boston Celtics were letting him do that. All right, so that is our show. I'm going to have to think of a poll to put because I realized I forgot to put one with last week's podcast. But thanks so much, everybody, for being on, and we will see you next week. And hopefully we have another special guest, a blast from the past on the podcast, and that's all the teasing.